This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. All I have within me, I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart. I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me. This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. All I have within me, I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart. I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, I give you my heart. I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, I give you my heart. I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, have your way in me.
the splendor of a king, clothed in majesty. All the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Oh, sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, sing how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, Father, Spirit, and Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Oh, sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, sing how great is our God. His name above all names, worthy of our praise. My heart will sing how great is our God. How great is our God? Oh, sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, we'll sing how great is our God. His name above all names, worthy of our praise. My heart will sing how great is our God. How great is our God? Oh, sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, we'll sing how great is our God. How great is our God? Oh, sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, we'll see how great is our God.
Let go and let God have His wonderful way. Let go and let God have His way. Your sorrows will vanish, your nights turn to day. Let go and let God have His way. Oh, let go and let God have His wonderful way. Let go and let God have His way. Your sorrows will vanish, your nights turn to day. Let go and let God have His way. Oh, let go and let the Holy Ghost have His wonderful way. Let go and let God have His way. Your sorrows will vanish, Your nights turn to day. Let go and let God have His way. Oh, let go and let God have His wonderful way. Let go and let God have His way. Your sorrows will vanish, your nights turn to day. Let go and let God have His way. I want to hit on something a little bit tonight. How sure are you that God has made you who you are? How sure are you of that? I want you to think about that question a minute. How sure are we that God has made us the way we are? You say, well, that's a crazy question. Well, I know, but I'm going to have a decent answer for us. I misquoted something this morning. I misquoted a word, and I'm going to change it. It was a number, and I'm going to change that because I get in a big hurry sometimes. And can anybody tell me what I misquoted this morning? Brother Husky, can you tell me? What? You wasn't paying no attention? I thought you said I wasn't paying no attention. I'm sorry. I know you was paying attention. Can anybody tell me what I misworded something? A number. Come on, somebody surely caught that besides me. Talking about Noah? I said he got 7 saved. Well, he got 7 saved, but 8 counting 7, but he only got 7 saved, but he built an ark that would hold thousands. But that wasn't what I misquoted. What I misquoted was, I said that God told him, and the reason I'm saying this, I want us to catch the specifics of how great God is. Specifics of how God just engineers you tonight. You say, well, I don't know, God. I'm in this and I'm going through this, and, I don't know if God even cares. Hey, God built us. He made us. And He's so specific the way He made you. You might be 5'3", you might be 6'2", you may be 100 pounds, you may be 200 pounds, you may be 311. I don't know. But God specifically made you who you are. You say, well, no, I'm a different person. Well, He still made you the way you are. So God told Noah, He said, the end of all flesh has come before me. And I'm just going to stay here a minute because I want to correct my mistake. And I knew it was a mistake when I said it. But I kept going because that's a big way of preaching. And I thought, well, I'll fix this. And then I didn't. He said, Noah, I want you to build me an ark 300 feet long. I want you to I want you to make it 50 feet wide and 100 feet high. Does anybody remember that? Wasn't 100 feet high, was it? What? You mean you mean you're going to tell me I was wrong? Absolutely. Why did I do it that way? Because that's how specific God is when He speaks to us. You say, well, God don't care. Oh, yes, He does. He'll say, you go down here to Market Basket and stop and get you a loaf of bread. I'm not going to Market Basket, God. I'm going to Food Line. It's cheaper. And God will say, I told you to go to Market Basket. Well, God, I don't buy bread at Market Basket. And God will tell you the third time, I told you go to Market Basket. And by then we should shut up and say, I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry that I didn't mean to argue with you. Because there's a reason I need to be at the Market Basket. Because God's specific about everything we do. You say, well, that's jumble. No, it's not. You think of the way your life's been. And I promise you, God's been there in every part of your life. Specifically. So He said, no, make it 30 feet high. 30 cubits high. 300 cubits long. And 50, the breadth of it, 50. Which was 75 and 450 long. and 45 high. Because if it's going to keep it because it's 1.5 feet. Now, what does that matter? I'm going to shortcut God. He's not going to care. God says, stop and give that woman $20. She don't have no gas money. Well, God, I don't know who you think I am. I don't have $20 bills growing on my backyard. And God will say, I didn't ask you what you had. I told you stop and give that lady $20. Do you believe God would really do that to us? You better know that God is specific what He does with His people. You remember you're His hands and His feet? We're His hands and His feet tonight. We're His spokesman for God. Did you know that? So God does things in specific ways and numbers. So we say, well, why does it matter? Now, I'm not going to get on tithe, but a lot of people don't even believe in paying tithes. And I'm not going to get on that, but I will say this. If your tithe is 10% of $10, then it's $1. And if you give 50 cents, you just stole 50 cents out of God's pocket. Well, I did not. Yes, you did. You reached into God's pocket and stole 50 cents. Because we're required to give a tenth. Not a ninth or a fifth or a second or a 50%. I'm not going to stay there. I'm not fussing nobody for not giving tithes. God knows what we do, what we don't do. But God does specific things for a specific reason. Now let me ask you, do you want God's blessings? Do you want 90% of God's blessings? Or do you want 10% of God's blessings? Do we want 10% or 90%? Well, then all He requires is 10%. We get the 90% of blessing. Well, I never thought of it like that. Well, that's what you get. If you give 10%, God gives you 90% of the blessings. Well, that's crazy, preacher. God don't need my money. He don't need us. Did anybody hear that? God don't need me, but I need Him. You need Him tonight. So I don't believe in paying tithes. Well, then you're not blessed. You're not blessed by God. You might be blessed by the world, but you're not blessed by God. The devil will bless you if you're not careful. And I don't want to stay on that. That's not my message. My message is God specifically put something on something. They were over there fishing, and over in John 21. They were over there fishing, and Jesus just happened to be around. Thank God He's around. Aren't you glad He's around? Well, I might not find it. Okay, John 21. I'm going to try to get through this because I want the message to be launched into all of us. I don't want to just zip through something, but I want to get the message because it's very important to hear the specifics of what God is tonight. God's not. Thank God, God's not a 10% God, Sister Diane. I never need a 10% God. I need a 100% God. He's kept me on ice. He's kept me in a hailstorm. He's kept me when it's snowing so hard I can see a foot in front of me, 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground, but you couldn't see cars. You couldn't see nothing for a total whiteout, and God spared me and kept me. He didn't have to, but God spared me, brought me down the road, and kept me, praise God, and brought me back to this lovely lady. He didn't have to do that. But He gave me the 100%, Sister Jean. He didn't have to do that. God could have been sitting around whittling on a piece of wood and said, well, I'm just going to give Him 10%, God, tonight. What does that mean? What do you think it means? It means you might get 10% of God's covered and 90% of you's not covered. Now, how much of you want 10% of you covered and how much of you want 100% covered? I want all of me covered by the blood, don't you? I don't want God to parcel me out. I mean, he's hearing me tonight. I'm not talking about your money. I'm not talking about money. God, don't partial me out. God, please don't give me 10% today. And when I lay down at night, Lord, there's demons runs up down the highway looking whom they made of iron. God, give me 100% that I can lay my head down and sleep in peace. You know, people don't have that. So let's read this. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And on this wise showed he himself. There were together Simon, Peter, and Thomas, called Didymus, and Nathanael of Canaan in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and the two other of his disciples. Simon Peter saith unto them, I go a-fishing. I like to fish. I like to be in there with him. They say unto him, we also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. Been there and done that. I've been to the coast of the ocean and fished for a week, caught nothing. I mean 12, 14, 15 hours a day fishing, caught nothing. For a week. Called Sister Owens, how you doing? We ain't caught nothing. You remember them calls, don't you? Honey, it's dry down here. Nobody's catching nothing. They got, in the ocean, they got fish that you don't really eat. We call them trash fish. Skates. Big old ugly skates. And they get that big. Like that. And old sand sharks. And they'll get on your line. They'll twist your line up. You got to cut your line. They ruin your line. We call them trash fish. Why are they trash fish? Because I don't eat them. Good fish is like flounder, what we call spots, pompanoes, puppy drum. I've probably never heard of some of these fish. That's what we catch out of those. Drum, whiting. There's others. Perch. You don't see many perch calls off the pier, but there's perch. Red snapper. Catch them out a little bit deeper out in the boats. And so the trash fish is no good. But I've been down there and not caught no trash fish. That's a dead week when you don't catch trash fish. You say, well, I don't want to catch no trash fish. It's better not catching nothing. At least it's been in your pole, and you're whining, and it's been in your pole, and you're fighting to get something in. And everybody's saying, fish on board, get the net. They're laughing, they're joking. But you catch one of these skates that big around, and you got to have a net to get it in. It'll break your line, break your rod. So I like to be in there fishing with Simon. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore. But the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then Jesus saith unto them, children, have you any meat? In other words, have you had a successful night? Why did Jesus care if they caught fish or not? Because he's a specific God, Sister Jean. He cares specifically about each one of us tonight. Sure he does. He cares whether you got food in the cupboard. He cares whether you got clothes to wear. He cares whether you got a house, a roof over your head. He cares whether you got a car to drive. He cares about every need that we have. They answered him, no. And he said unto them, cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fish. It says fishes. Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved saith to Peter, it is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girded his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. And the other disciples came in a little ship, for they were not far from land, but as it were 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. As soon then as they were come to the land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid thereon and bread. Jesus saying unto them, bring up the fish which ye now have caught. Now, I want you to watch this right here. Bring up the fish which ye have now caught. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes. Man, we had a bunch of fishes. Simon Peter went and dragged the net up to it with a great bunch of fishes. That's not the end of it. You know what the end of it is? The end of it, God had specifically put 153 fish in their net. Now, why would God do that? Why would God specifically make a way for you where there is no way? Why wouldn't God just say, well, I'm not going to give that person 100% tonight. They're on their own going home. Is there anybody in here want to be on your own trying to get home the way people drive? Every time we go somewhere, we meet someone on the wrong side of the road. God, I never want to be on my own. I don't never want 10%, God. I want 100%. Everywhere I go, God, I want you with me. Not part of you. I want all of you. Does it matter that much, Brother Bryant? Would it matter that much? And we just said, I don't care, God, as long as you're with me. You know how arrogant people are sometimes. People get arrogant. I don't care, God, as long as you're with me. Okay, God said, I'll be 5% with you tonight. You're going home with 5% of me covering you. I'd be scared to get in my car, Sister Jean. Every time we turn around, somebody's on the wrong side of the road coming at us, aren't they? We have to pray wherever we go. We have to say, God, help us. I mean, 2 miles away from here to my house, and we meet people on the wrong side of the road coming to church. Looking down in the floor, looking at the phone, messing the radio, looking around, whatever. That's right. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes. I don't care how many fish I got, God. I just got me a net full of fish. No. I want every fish you want me to get, God. You said I got 153. No more and no less. I want you to get this. God's specific with His Word. God's not a hillbilly. God's not a dum-dum. God's not a no-no. He's not a half-giver. God does it right. Well, we got 153. And for all there were so many, yet was not the net broke. Now, it didn't say what size fish, but they could have been king mackerel. If you ever saw king mackerel, they get 4, 5, 6 feet long. And they're good to eat. It could have been red snapper. They get like that. They could have been flounder, that big around. Flounder get big. 15-pound flounders about like that. We call them inner tube down at the beach. You see somebody got a flounder that big, they call it inner tube. It's a big old thing. It's good. But God specifically gave them 153 fish. I don't think God done that. I think they just were on their own. How many of you want to be on your own tonight? Anybody? I don't. God, just leave me alone. I want to be on my own. I'll get home anyway, God. Might not have a side left on either one of my vehicle or my vehicle on either side. It might be gone till I get there. May not have a windshield. I may be laying up at the hospital, Sister Jean, if I try to get it there on my own. But how many people's got that attitude tonight and say, preacher, don't meditate in my life. I'll do it my way. You know what they're saying? They're saying, God, you give me 10%. That's all I want, or 5%. I don't want anything else. 153 fish. Why? A 100 mean God's selection of grace or children of promise. 50 means Holy Ghost anointing. 3 means resurrection, divine completeness, and perfection. Now, I know that didn't mean anything to those fish. I know that. But I want you to see how careful that God told Noah to do something, and he specifically gave him 300, 50, and 30. How many times has God been specific with us and we did not hear it? Oh, I hear God every time He speaks. I don't. I don't. Because sometimes He shows up in a little child. Sometimes He shows up in a senior. Maybe needs some help along the way. Sometimes He might show up in a battered wife, and you run into them maybe at McDonald's or on your way to the grocery store, and you run into somebody and they want to pour their heart out to you. So that ain't God. I don't have time for them, really. God didn't say that to me. He had time for me, Sister Owens. God took time out for me, and God took time out for you tonight. And God didn't give you 10%. God gave you 100%. Remember He said, when I saw thee hungry, or when you saw me hungry, and you fed me not? When saw a thirsty, and you gave me no drink? When saw me naked, and you clothed me not? Oh, that's not God. You remember, I believe it was Loretta Lynn, I believe it was, or Dolly Parton did the song, and God told this woman, said, I'm going to come visit you before the day's over. You remember that? Anybody remember that? A little child come to the door, wants some cookies and milk, I think. I don't remember it all, but I do remember. It's like, I'm probably going to tell it wrong, but she opened the door and she grabbed some cookies and handed to him. She said, hurry on your way now. Go on. I've got company coming. The next time a traveler comes, starved to death, knocks on the door and says, have you got anything to eat? Here's your piece of bread. Now hurry, get on the way. Go on. Go on. I got somebody coming. I got company coming. And then late that afternoon, a knock on the door. I forget who it was. Somebody lost and didn't know how to get somewhere, and they hurried them out the door. And sometime late that night, the lady sat there and said, God, I don't understand it. You told me you was going to come visit me today, and you didn't do it, God. And God rebuked her and said, I came 3 times. My. That ought to make us all holler. I came 3 times. I was that little girl wanting cookies and milk. And you just shoved them in my face and said, get on out the door, get gone. God just wanted to spend some time with you, but you couldn't spend time with that little girl. You hurried her out the door. And then the hungry came. You just throwed a piece of bread in her hand and said, get on out the door. I just wanted to spend time, just a little bit of time in the warmth of your house. And you hurried me out the door. And the third one come, I'm lost. Can you help me? And they just rushed and hurried and told them, be on their way. And God said, 3 times I come to see you, and you turned me away. How many times have we done that? He said, I'm looking for Jesus to come. Well, He might come to your door before the night's over. In a little girl, in a teenager, in a neighbor, crying out for help. So God specifically gives us numbers. Why does He do that? I believe it's to show us that God is in control of everything we do. over in Acts 27th chapter. And starting with the 13th verse. Acts 27:13, we're going to read just a little bit. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, losing thence they sailed close by Crete, but not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Eurusodom. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. Eurocadam. Is that right, Kathy? I don't know. What? Erothidam. Thank you, brother. And when the ship was called and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive, and running under a certain island, which is called Claudia, we had much work to come by the boat, which when they had taken up, they used helps undergirding the ship, and fearing lest they should fall into the quicksands, strake sail, and so were driven. And we being exceedingly tossed with a tempest, the next day they lightened the ship, and the third day we cast out with our own hands the tackling of the ship. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. But after long absence, Paul stood forth in the midst and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. For there stood by me this night the angel of the Lord, the angel of God, whose I am, and whom to serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar, and lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God that it shall be even as it were told me. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down in Adria about midnight, the shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country, and sounded and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little farther, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. Then, fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern, and wishing for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea, under color as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Paul stood to the centurion and to the soldiers. Paul said to the centurion, to the soldiers, except these abide in the ship, you cannot be saved. There's times we need to listen to somebody. He ain't telling me nothing. You'd be surprised people's walked out of church before mad and said, that preacher ain't telling me nothing. He thinks he knows everything. He's not telling me nothing. Sometimes it pays to listen, doesn't it? Where did we get to? Thank you. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health. For thou shalt not a hair fall from the head of any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And we were all in the ship. 216 souls. How many is that, Brother Husky? 276? 286? 276, isn't it? 3 scores 60? 276 was in the ship. Why not 277? God had an order in that ship. Well, it wouldn't have meant anything if God had lost a couple, Jesse. It wouldn't have meant anything to lose a couple. I mean, you know, probably we wouldn't have missed them, right? I mean, maybe they wanted to eat more than we did. It would have been all right if we'd have lost them. Really? No. God don't want to lose anybody. 276 souls remained in the ship because they listened to Paul. There shall anything come near thee. Not anything. No harm is going to come to you. You might have to do that food a little bit, fast a little bit. I imagine the food was getting low. They had fasted. And he told them to take some meat and eat, get their strength. How important was it that they listened to what God said, even if it was through Paul? What if it was through David? What if it was through Sister Julie? What if it was through Jesse? What if it was through Sister Jean? What if God just spoke through somebody and said, hey, don't leave this church till 10 o'clock tonight? Well, that wasn't God. I got things I got to do. I don't know what they're talking about. You see, we would instantly want to second guess God because we want them to come the way we want them to come. We want to reel God in. We want this voice to knock us out of our seat. And I know it was God because He roared in my ears and knocked me out of my seat. You remember when the man of God went up and looked and there was a thunder and there was lightning and there was storms and God wasn't in it. Then there was a still small voice. Like God came by 3 times that day to the woman's house. There was 3 still small voices. So 276 stayed in the ship and no harm come to them. Do you mean to tell me God is that specific? That God handpicked 153 fish? I believe it. I believe it with all my heart. Could have been 54. It could have been 152. But it wasn't. It was 153. God handpicked them fish. God said, okay, you get in the ship or you get in the net. You get in the net. You go on. You're not big enough. You go on. We want to have some meat. Go on. You go on. You grow a little bit. Go on. You say you're crazy. You don't think God cares enough about us to do that? I've heard people praying. Now, I know we pray crazy prayers. But I've heard people over here say, you know what, God, I'd had good chicken in a long time. I'd like to have some chicken for dinner. Well, I know what we think. Well, go get you some chicken. Well, maybe didn't have the money to get the chicken. And they just prayed, Sister Jean. They said, God, I'd like to have some chicken for dinner tomorrow. And for some reason, just some reason, somebody knocked on the door the next day and said, I don't know why, but there was a chicken in my yard, and I ended up killing it and dressing it, and I felt like bringing it to you. Well, now, preacher, you know God don't work like that. Oh, God does work like that, too. The preacher's wife, that we come up under a preacher and his wife, and one time her husband was away preaching, and she had she had a set of twin girls, and she had 2 sons. And they didn't have any money, and the preacher was off preaching. He didn't no money much when he was preaching. He didn't give no big offerings. But sometimes he didn't get gas money back home. A couple of the kids said, Mama, I'd like to have some eggs today. Hadn't had no eggs, probably in 3 or 4 weeks. You say, really? Was it like that? Oh yes, it's like that, wasn't it, sister? They people come up hard, didn't they? A lot of people come up hard. This friend of mine used to say, we're as poor as Job's turkey. That's pretty poor. And somebody else said we were so poor we didn't know we was poor. Well, we didn't know we was poor. Everybody was poor. My daddy brought groceries once a month. He backed that big old 53, I believe it was 53, I get it right. Chevrolet, he backed that thing up there in the driveway, and we run out there like a vulture. He went to the grocery store once a month. He got paid once a month from Broughton Hospital. And I want you to know he filled that trunk full of groceries, and it had to do us a month. And there was 4 children at home. I was the baby. I wasn't a baby, but I was the baby. We were so happy to see that car come every month. My dad backed that car up, man, loaded. We went to carry them groceries. We didn't argue. We didn't fuss over who's going to get the heavy bag, who's going to get the light bag, who's going to grab this. We got out and grabbed them groceries. We were so happy to run in the house. We had food to eat. And God said, I own 153 fish in this net. And I believe just like that, 153 fish, they lined up for the net. Now, preacher, you know God don't do things like that for us. Oh, yes, he does. I'm telling you, my wife went before and got a coat she hadn't worn in a while and put it on. And what'd you find in it?
Money, most of the time.
Money. Found a $100 bill one time.
It wasn't in the coat.
Well, was it in a pocketbook? Wasn't in my pocketbook because I didn't have one.
My coupon book.
In a coupon book. That's pretty good, isn't it? Well, God don't do stuff like that. The God I serve does. The God I serve said I'd never go hungry. Might not be what I want, but he said I'd never go hungry. He said he'd always meet my need, not my want. I remember one time we was taking an offer. Somebody wanted us to take an offer from this family. And we were taking an offer, and we got about $200, and we gave it to this family. It's true. I call no name, but we did this. Somebody come to me the next week and said, you know that offer you gave that family? I said, yeah, they was really hurt financially. They really need help. Yeah, they spent it 2 nights up at the steakhouse. They really need help. 2 nights they spent $200 at the steakhouse. Now, was they in need? I believe God gives us our wants, Sister Jean. Sometimes I think he does. Sometimes I think those little extra. You know the icing that used to be. You know the cake was made, and, you know, we were little, and the cake was made, and my grandma or my mom would set that icing bowl over there to the side, you know, and she's over here doing things, and I'm over here, and I'm going. And I got icing all over me, and Mama looks at her, what are you doing? Nothing. That icing was so good. I'd have icing all over my face. Sometimes God throws a little icing in too, doesn't he? Well, you reward your children when they're small. Sometimes you did a little extra for them. I mean, we go to steakhouse and we take our children, and every time we go, one of them knock a drink over. All the time. Drink go everywhere. I wish we could just glue this glass to the table, or, you know, somehow or another where they couldn't move it. So God said, get exactly 153 fishes and get in those people's net. The ones that I told them to cast on the right side. The ones that hadn't caught nothing all night. We fished all night, Jesus, and we've caught naught. You got anything to eat? No. God said, okay, I'm going to give you 100%. Go on, fish. Go on, get in the net. Go on. You say, I don't believe God does like that. Well, how do you think you've got where you're at tonight? You think it's luck? Luck is, if I'm lucky, I won't run over a nail before I get home and have a flat. But I don't believe in luck. I'm blessed if I don't. It's not by chance you're where you're at tonight. Oh, through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come, as the Bible says. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. Through many tears and trials, and tears and trials and pains and hurts and hurts and hurts and people hurting us and stepping on, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, mistreating us. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. Was grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me on. So tonight, God's a specific God. I'm going to give you the numbers on these. I'm going to give you the meaning of these numbers right fast. 276 souls. 200 by itself means insufficient. Insufficient. Just 200. 70 means universal, Israel and her restoration. And of course we know what sickness 6 is. Six is weakness of man, evils of Satan. But you put those three together, and they don't mean these three. 276 souls spared. God spared them on that boat there, where two seas met, where the ship come apart. Now, why would God do that? You remember I asked you, how many of you believe that God's made you the way He's made you? I believe it. If we can understand that we belong to the Lord, then we can understand that He's not going to let anybody go without. Well, it might not be a Mercedes. Some of you may dream of Mercedes. It might not be a F-350, and they're nice, but it might not be that. It might be a Toyota with 250,000 miles on it. Well, God wouldn't do that for me. God's going to bless me. God blesses us anything He gives us. God blessed me with Toyota one time, and it wouldn't run half time. And I gave it to David, and it wouldn't run half time for him either. Would it, David? He'd get mad and quit on me. I thought, well, I'll give it to David. Maybe I won't get mad at him. He got mad at David, quit on him on the side of the road, Rachel. Just be going along his side, didn't want to go, wouldn't it, David? It just quit, didn't it? I don't know what's wrong with that car. I had people pray for it. I talked to it. I hollered at it. I commanded it. Little old black Toyota. I can see it tonight. No, but David had one back there, and he took it to everybody, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, could they, David? He gave it to me, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. I gave it to another boy, and he kept it one day and brought it back to me. I gave it back to David, and David got rid of it. Did you get that devil out of my parking lot, out of my driveway? I've had some doozies of cars over the years, some doozies. But I believe God blessed me and gave me every one of them. I don't think maybe that some of them weren't what I wanted, Sister Julie. I would rather have something a little prettier and a little better, but you know what? God gave it to me, and I know that He did. Tonight, as I close, God specifically cares about you tonight and me. He cares about what's going on in your life. He cares about where you're at. He cares about the affairs of your life, where you're at, what's going on. And the song says, God will make a way where there seemeth to be no way. And that's exactly what He does. And He keeps on, and He keeps on, and He keeps on, and He keeps on doing it. I remember Brother Jerry back there over the years. Jerry would call me. He'd be going through a storm, and he would call me, and he'd say, I want you to pray, brother, what I do about this. And I tried to give him godly counsel many times, didn't I, brother? And I remember he called me one time, and he said, I've come into some money, and I'm about to get some money. And I want to pay tithes on it. He said, how much would my tithes be? Ain't too many people call a preacher and ask him how much their tithes would be. They wouldn't ask God either. I'm pretty quick with numbers. I said, such and such will be your tithes. He said, I'll have a check Sunday. Put it in the bank. We was over yonder renting the buildings. We was paying $2,700 a month. 3 buildings over there. God never missed a payment. Did you hear how I said that? God never missed a payment the whole time we was over there. We never was late, was we, Sister Owens? And the landlord come back and said, I'm going to take $200 and I'm going to give it back to you to put in your food ministry. God has never missed a payment. And it was some years later. We had just moved over here in this church right here. You remember this? And Brother Jerry says, I found out I've got some money I'm going to get. I believe you said you didn't know about it, didn't you? He said, how much tithes would be on this money? And I told him. And I remember him bringing the money order. He brought a money order in. And he laid it in the... Now I know you're thinking, like, what good was that? Well, this church needed it, I tell you that. We were doing a lot of things with my sister Diane. And I tell you one thing. God has never, ever, never, ever quit blessing him. I'm not going to take off for tonight, so don't get anything about that. Sister Jean, you know how well God blesses, don't he? And I remember Brother Jerry came to me one time and he says, I'd like to have a new truck. And I said, well, we buy a lot of our vehicles down at True Light, Winston-Salem. I said, you can go online and look, see what they got. I said, you can call them up. I said, they'll bring the truck to you. They'll find you a truck. And I said, they'll bring it to you. And I said, you can drive it. You got 3 days to drive it. If you don't like it, he'll come back, pick it up, and take it back. It won't cost you nothing. We bought cars like that, didn't we, from True Light? Twice. They brought it up to the house, signed the papers at our eating table. I don't like car lots. I don't do car lots. They're comical. They act like they're going back to talk to the Wizard of Oz. They'll go back there and spend 15, 20 minutes, and they'll come back. Well, the wizard said we can do this and this and this. They didn't go talk to nobody. They went back there and got them a cup of coffee and sat back there a while, making us think they're back there talking to a wizard, going to cut us a deal. The whole time they want to cut our throat, aren't they, G? I don't like car lots. I don't do car deals too good. So Brother Jerry called those people up. I believe he wanted a white one. They didn't have a white one, did they? He had a black one. He looked at the black one. He liked the black one. He said, well, they don't have a white and they got a black one. He showed me a picture. He said, this is a good-looking truck. He said, I really like it. He said, what do I need to do? And I told him what to do. I said, you just call them up. They'll take your application on the phone. They'll check you out. And I said, 24 hours, they'll have an answer for you. You knew the next day, didn't you? They said, when you want it delivered, didn't they? Did they bring it to you? Yep. That's the way I like to do business. I don't like to go car lots. So, well, if I don't like the car, I'll call them, come get it in 3 days, take it back. Yep, they take it back. Bought Jerry's other truck he had off of him when he got this one. That fast he sold his truck, bought a truck. Now, do you think God done that or do you think Jerry done that? I believe God done that, don't you, for Jerry? That's what God does for us. That's what he does. That's who he is. I'll meet your needs. You don't know how bad it is, preacher. You don't know how good God is. God will meet your need. I don't care what the devil tells you, God will meet your need. Well, now, how do I get this God to move for me? Well, the first thing you do is you start speaking it out of your mouth. God's going to give me a better vehicle. God's going to bless it. Tell everybody you see, my God's going to give me a better vehicle. Well, what's that got to do with it? Because the Bible says the power of life and death lies in your tongue. And you can sit around and say, God ain't going to never do nothing for me, He never has. Or you could say, by God, it's going to give me a good vehicle. Right? Start saying that. Will you do that? When you get up in the morning and start saying, my God is going to give me a good vehicle. I mean, say it every day. I don't care how you feel. Say it. My God's going to give me a better, whatever it is. If it's a house, I don't care what it is. Brother David, you all were living in an apartment in a bad, bad place, weren't you? Now they're living in their own house. Because my God is their God. And they got a new house, didn't you? I remember when you got it. I think we come over and prayed over it, didn't we? Brand new house. Habitat. They built them a new house. Beautiful. You say, why they do that for David and Rachel? Because my God said He'd do exceedingly, abundantly, above that which we could think or ask. That's right. He went around apologizing to people. God told him to apologize to people. Even though he hadn't done anything, he still apologized to them. Is that right? Tonight, as I bring this to a close, God specifically has your number tonight. He specifically has your number. And He never stops blessing. There's no limit to the blessings of God. I'm not a power-packed blessing preacher. I'm not a prosperity preacher. I'm a preacher that knows I come from a mobile home that they was fixing to take. They took our cars, it was broke, and they pulled it out of the way. Didn't have no vehicle, and I had nothing in my billfold. And a man come along and prayed for my vehicle, for my pocketbook on the front porch, and he said, God's going to give you back everything that the devil stole, and God's going to give you more. And so help me, God done just what He said. And that man ended up on drugs and died on drugs. But he was right when he come to my house. When God sent him to my house, he was living right, and he prophesied over my empty billfold, Sister Jean. God can use a duck if He wants to, can't He? He can use a chicken if He wants to. He can use a rooster. He wasn't nothing but a drunk. I don't believe nothing. He said, if God sends a homeless man to my house and he has something to tell me, I'm going to listen to it. And God has never quit blessing because we've never quit giving. And we'll always give. Always give. And that's not a brag. That's the blessings. Remember specifics tonight. God works in specifics. He specifically, God knew that David and Rachel would be living in that house over there. What's that street called? Hill? What's that called up that hill? Yeah. Plaza Street or Plaza Circle. Is it Circle? That's where my aunt lives, right top of the hill. God knew before David ever saw Rachel, they'd be living on Plaza Circle in a new house. So I don't believe that. I do. I believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. God specifically knows us tonight. And He knows our hearts. He knows our needs. Somebody called me one time not long ago and they said, I'm behind on my tithes and I'm not able to give them right now, but I'm going to give them. You think that'll be all right? I said, well, God absolutely knows our heart. Well, I'm sure it's all right. God's not going to hang you. But I'm going to pay them and I'm going to catch them up. I thought, well, God knows you better than I do. You don't got to worry, tell me. God's already got it. He already knows your heart. And they did. They caught them up like they said they would. Tonight, God specifically knows you. He specifically knows what you need. Oh, I may look good to the outside. Oh, they might not. Oh, they might not be no frail. Oh, the windows may look good in the house, Sister G. I mean, the house might be painted and the roof might not leak, and the house might look good on the outside, but on the inside there may be pain, there may be hurt, there may be tears on the inside, because God knows our hearts. And so God specifically knows what we have need of tonight. As I bring this to a close tonight, I want you to remember specifically, God He specifically gives us what we have need of.